Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Amwell. Today, I'm very proud and happy to welcome a special guest, Mr. Frank Salzgeber, who's Head of Innovation at Venture Office at the European Space Agency. Frank oversees the entire and largest space entrepreneurship network in the world. With his team, they've supported more than 500 or more than 800 startups, and they've helped accelerate more than 220 million euros in investment in these startups. There's a lot that we can learn from their experience, not only in Europe, but also in the Middle East, and looking into also the opportunities that space can bring for us. Frank, welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much. It's my honor. Thank you for having me.
So my first question is, do you have time to sleep?
Yeah, and I sleep very well because we all need to sleep because otherwise we have not the necessary distance to see the stars and the future. So, oh yes, besides when I'm traveling too much, but I think sleep is very important.
So I want to start off with, your vision and the vision for the European space sector, and what we call today new space.
Yeah, it's thank you so much. It's a very good question, and a little bit also for myself, because I'm not a space engineer from education. I'm an industrial engineer. I worked for Apple, had my own startup company, and then joined ESA in 2003. And since 2006, we were looking to tech transfer and IP, and also supporting startups, which I did for 16 years, early stage, but I have moved this part. And in these times, I think that when we're looking to space, it was very governmental driven. You have the space agencies, the government were the main provider. I think there was one exception. One exception was telecommunication. You had in the 80s, the startup company called Astra. Kenneth Johnson, a good friend of mine, was involved in that and setting that up. So that was the first change. But also this was big satellites, geo orbit, big money. It was a closed shop, it was a oligopoly. So, but 16 years ago, it really dramatic change. We always have seen startups in space, but they were not so successful. But then it has changed because it has to do with the business model. I would say that when you're looking to SpaceX, it's changed the business model. The DoD and NASA not buying a rocket, but paying only for the payload. Yeah, it sounds super easy for everybody who's listening now, but in space, the business model, you buy a rocket, throw it away, buy a rocket, throw it away. And he said, okay, if I reuse the rocket, and the rocket engines are the most expensive part, I can lower the price. When I have customers not paying for the rocket for the payload, I make a better buck. So, and I think this was one of the things changing. You have more people thinking about different methods. You had this new space ecosystem about the nano satellites, small satellites. And when we started supporting startup companies 6 years ago, trust me, we were the underdogs. Now, the incubation network, which we supported 1,200 startups. And since last September, I moved that network to the operation to somebody else. And at the moment, we're looking more, what is the next big thing? Where are the companies which are growing? Where are the acceleration? Where are the later stage startups who build the future? And space, when we look to commercial, to telecommunication, was always commercial. And I think that is a main advantage also for the MENA region. When we come later to it, into that.
Yeah. So please, could you just give us, the different segments that we have today in the new space sector, and where is the role of the private sector? How has this transition? I mean, this cheaper access, what has it unlocked in reality, and really for European startups as well?
Yes, and there's three big pillars, I always saying. One is the navigation, one is the telecommunication, and the third is the Earth observation. These are the segments you have in space. Navigation is pretty much dominated by the governments, because it's Galileo, it's Galileo, it's GPS from NASA, GLONASS, Baidu, and so on. But with value-added services for agriculture, for transport, you can still make money. And it's not only Garmin and Trimble is doing that, there are more companies. Earth observation, my personal feeling is having satellite imagery becomes a commodity. So the future will be rather in Amazon, Azure, because you have so much available. So it's more that the IT, telecommunication becomes especially now in a crisis, even more important. So telecommunication, that's the future, and that will be 5G from the sky, bringing to connectivity. And when you're looking to Starlink, you get 250 megabits a second as a speed with the latency. So the typical, we would call it in IT ping of 35 milliseconds. That's cool. And so, and when we're looking now, but also the Minister of the Telecommunication Industry and Technology has done in Saudi Arabia, signing a deal with Nuon and then OneWeb, I think it was 200 million last year. It's really closing the gap that we have internet everywhere. And we all know, especially in the pandemic, how internet is important. So I think the big market will be the telecommunication in low Earth orbit, bringing internet everywhere. And everybody has to bring their stuff up. So that's the downstream on the one side, but therefore I believe also now the crisis has, of course, an impact which we have in Europe. It will be the micro launchers doing that. So for the startups, it's the new market. They are quick, they are fast, they're innovative, and this is a game everybody can play. And to be honest, the big agencies and this government, they're putting beside from being the customer, being just a supporter. And if we are not quick enough, maybe the startups do not need us.
Absolutely. And so how you mentioned your role now of accelerating and helping these startups. Could you be more precise into what you do and where you put most of your focus?
Sure. At the moment, we work with new industry fields together, which look to space, automotive, energy. We're setting some up with the telcos, the big telcos. That's the next thing. Are the big telcos at the top of the supply chain or becoming maybe not interested anymore? When you're looking to electric cars to go to the charging station, you don't need a card. It's automatic connecting. And so it's space is becoming the backbone of our digitalization. Therefore, it becomes a commodity, and therefore things are changing. And we have more and more companies going into that market, which were not coming out of the classical space area. And and helping companies to grow is not always cash. You start with the right connections. And when you have a 50 or 100 people company, the problem is really how you grow it, how you move from VC to private equity. When we look into exploration, and this is where Luxembourg is an event in the beginning of May, where we will have a panel which I do related to venturing. It's about asset finance. What is the difference to finance a solar park in Australia or a glass fiber network in the US or maybe a power plant on the moon? It's just asset financing. So if we can trade on the Chicago board, trade board, copper, aluminium, and others, why we cannot trade water on asteroids? Why we have to bring it up, which is out there? So I think it's about the financial engineering, and this was maybe it's typical mistake from engineers. And as I said, I'm an industrial engineer, not always coming from the technology in the project. Why not starting from the financing? When you have a big copper mine, you first see that you get the money together and looking all this necessary information about the mine, how much you have in there. And then you're looking to the technology and the supplier, not the other way around. You do not start with the driller or the caterpillar. So this is, but in space we do that a little bit. And I think this is changing. So our job is to how we help the companies to grow further, how to connect them. And this is the 10 million tickets are not the issues. It's the 300 million, 200 million tickets and beyond. And then how you make the factory, how you scale it. And entrepreneurship is not a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's a decathlon because you have to do so many things together. And we are back now to the EMEA region. And I had the pleasure to be on LEAP in Riyadh a couple of weeks ago. I think in the EMEA region, it's not only Saudi Arabia, but across, there are a lot of family companies good in exploration, good in transport, good in trading. And I do strongly believe that some of the methods we just have to adapt to another industry. And then we increase the speed.
It's very interesting what you're saying, because I heard like comparing telecommunication satellite that have been in business for, as you mentioned, the pioneers, can be compared to a real estate model where basically you rent and you get yield. And so there are these parallels. And as you mentioned, space is being commoditized. And so I want to also check with you on the technology level, how is this technology adapting towards this new model and reversing things, as you mentioned? It's like finding the business model and finding the technology that helps this model.
Yeah, it is one of the projects, and I take this as an example, which we work on is Moonlight. So building the telecommunication navigation system for the moon. And one of my question was to the engineers, can we not do a similar model and like in the cell phones and subsidize the terminals? And we make the money with the data, and the terminals we go for free, like we do it with the printers. So therefore, I think we have to look from the outside in and not melting in our pot. And therefore, if you can finance a half city, a building, or a dam for power production, what is the difference to having a filling station in lower Earth orbit or a power plant in the moon? I don't want to build a power plant on the moon. I need the power, I need the resources, and I would love to make a contract with somebody who's doing that for me. And I think these change of the business models, this is the new industry, and the space industry is doing, and therefore we need different brains and new brains addressing that, and then it's a financial tool like everything else. So I would love to have more financial brains into that market, coming from the classical private and corporate investment part, or private equity or asset management. So at the moment, I'm speaking with one of the real estate fund, Patrizia. I think they have 55 billion under management, and they have a specialist on asset finance. And I said, I'm not sure if you should do space. I say, yeah, but what is the difference? It's a product. You bankable, you have to make it bankable, and then you sell it, and you see if you have a market from it. And I do believe there is a market.
So I agree with you, and I abide by your vision. I want to move now what you started mentioning about the Middle East. And so the Middle East, there is the same drive by the leadership to actually create this ecosystem as well of private sector and entrepreneurship and innovation, and collaborate with the entire world. You mentioned you've been to Saudi Arabia. How can there be some crossover? How can there be some support between Europe and the Middle East in your view?
Yeah, first, when we're looking to the kingdom, and the vision 2030, there is a lot of ambition, which it's the right start, and the kingdom has shown with NEOM how you do it. I think the space budget, they want to do it for 10 years, which is great, yeah, because this is the base, and then we see what we do. United Arab Emirates is doing similar. There was last year I was invited for a conference which we had more the Arabic states of Africa and the Middle East combining. So there's a lot of family business, which is positive because you get quick decisions. Yeah, of the family members. Normally, it's much quicker than a company which is traded on the stock and you have a board and so on. This is, I love to work with family companies, also in Europe. It makes the things easier. You get a yes or no. You have a very young population. You have a huge area. The kingdom is only the kingdom is 8 times bigger than United Kingdom, and so there's a market of demand, and I believe that it's really the decade of the MENA region, and it's the decade of space, and communication, telecommunication, it all comes together. And I know the area from the 80s that was different. We have a young generation which is on the power, which is well educated, international, super smart. We have some leaders. I believe this is a hot subject. Everything related to the digitalization, and space is an asset. Yeah, sorry, I think in the MENA region there will be no place where you will produce cheaper hydrogen, because the solar it makes sense to do it there rather than in some northern areas. And then we got to the e-fuels. With the e-fuels, you got the cheap propulsion. You're close to the equator. There's so many things you can think about, and connecting the last billion. Yeah, that's, I think, the big business. But this entrepreneurship, and you see that rising. Yeah, when we're looking 20 years ago, 15 years ago, it's not only Europe where this entrepreneurship renaissance really has started. We see it in the MENA region.
And there is a trend also in the Middle East. You mentioned obviously you have many friends and you know the region very well, but there is also a will to create opportunities locally. So do you see this as really a space for collaboration between European entrepreneurs and Middle Eastern one, or do you see it as a competition today?
No, but this is I don't believe in this is my and I told the best is cooperation, and this is every business is local, and this was one of the success tricks of our incubation support. We teamed up always with the right local people in Spain, in France, in Italy, because every country, every region has a specialty, its dialect, its business, and business is still between people. So, and if and I think it's pure arrogance if you think you come from abroad and roll of a market. A better partner with a local colleague, a local entrepreneur, and he rolls on the market, and I have a share. The good thing is also the necessity of funding is limited. When we look into the rest of the world, and I explain it always like this, that we say the American business model is first growth and then revenue, yeah? And then they buy the market. So it goes like this. The rest of the world is first revenues and then growth. It's a very flat line. And I think there's something between. I call it the Frank model. So where we say, can we do it on collaboration? When I have a product and I have a partner in Cairo, in Abu Dhabi, in Kuwait, in Riyadh, in Jeddah, or in Tabuk, does not matter. He's taking care of the business in that region. I get a share. I have not to worry. And I do the same with other regions. I can grow much quicker. I can share my resources, and you build it on trust. Because going yourself in the region, we all know that if it's difficult. So my dream still is a collaboration of more the incubation centers of the startup and finding the right peers. Is the same when you're becoming out of school or high school and you want to visit your uncle in America and Asia. You go first to your uncle. You go to your trusted partner. Bader in Biak and is doing Misk is doing that now in Kinder. And I think this is the job what we have to do as a governmental organization, telling them where is their right uncle and aunt to go there, being in a safe haven and not to get being ripped off going to Europe and then you go to a consultant who wants to sell you something. Yeah? So you need a good start. And I think this is what we can do. The rest entrepreneurs do themselves. They're smart enough.
We could go on for hours. It's very interesting, but I know you have to catch a flight. I think that the vision of entrepreneurship and family is very smart and a good way to move forward, and I abide by it. Just for on the last note, you know, the Middle East region and the Gulf region is transforming also into the tourism hub. So how far are we, just to know, of going and vacationing on the moon?
It's a good question, and I do not know if I will get it. But maybe my kids. I believe that we have first we have people working there, yeah, building the infrastructure, and when I was the first time in the Middle East, that was '93 when I learned diving in the Red Sea in Jeddah. In my class, only 2 people were flying, me and I think a girl. So that was it. How many times we fly now? So we're starting now with lower Earth orbit, and we are all explorers, and the curiosity drives us. So we will travel to the moon. We will go there. Axiom is, I think, is creating a moon hotel, and I know that some people from the Middle East are investing because they say we want to do cool things. Our dads were investing in Apple, but we want to do cool things. So they're investing also in the future. So the spirit is there. So and I take it always with when you take these watches, you know, there was so many books where people were speaking with the watch. So is when you have the vision, and that's super important, people will follow and invest and enable this vision and will have it. If it's 2040, 50, does not matter. Yeah, we have to, and I think this is where also the Middle East region is really something European can learn. Long-term vision, not a quarter, not 4 years. And when we look into now to the kingdom or the Emirates, if 20 years ago, when it was said it will become a touristic hub, I think there were not many people believing into that. They just do it. And I think that is something which is very nice to see. So therefore, I expect a lot. I think it's a very hot region at the moment. And who is not seeing that, it's their fault.
Well, thank you very much, Frank. It was very inspiring. And I hope it will give a lot of ideas to new entrepreneurs in both region and also some space for collaboration. Thank you so much and safe travels.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Assalama.